Hello and welcome to the Rams post-draft show presented by Rocket Mortgage. I'm JB along with Sarina Morales, and we're coming to you live from the Rocket Mortgage Draft House here in Malibu after 3 straight days of the Rams draft. Looking forward to tonight's show. We're going to get to know the Rams' first couple of selections, receiver Tutu Atwell and linebacker Ernest Jones.
Yep, and we're going to have our buddy Maurice Jones-Drew, who will be joining the show a little bit later, and our Super Bowl champ, D'Marco Farr, is with us to break down some picks. D-Farr, are you hanging in there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. Good draft day. Great 3 days. Yeah, a lot of fun.
All right, so you said it was a good draft day. Let's hear from the man of the hour, the Rams head coach, Sean McVay. Sean, we're done. You wrapped up the 2021 draft with 9 picks. How do you feel about the strategy, and how do you see the Rams' future looking with these newbies?
Yeah, I feel really good, Sarina. I think we definitely got better as a football team. We were able to really address a lot of the positions to add depth to what we feel really good about an already competitive roster, and then guys that can kind of fill some voids or address some things that we feel like can really help us take some of the next steps that are necessary in each of the 3 phases with the offense, defense, and the kicking game. But 9 guys, a lot of different flavors, but a lot of excitement, and I definitely think we got better as a football team the last.
I was going to ask you, Coach, tell me about Tutu. Tell me about Tutu Atwell, what he brings to the table. I know about the speed, but beyond the speed, what does he bring to your football team?
Yeah, you know, he definitely provides that big play element, D'Marco, but really when the ball's in his hands, he's a dynamic playmaker. He's definitely, you know, everybody makes a big deal about the size, but he plays big. I think you see a tough football player, an explosive playmaker. I really am impressed with the way that he tracks the ball down the field. You know, he can make plays outside of his frame. I think he plays bigger down the field. He reminds me of some guys that have had success that maybe are a little bit smaller in stature, but that have made, really good transitions from college to the NFL. And I think he's going to be around a bunch of great mentors. You know, Eric Yarber's a phenomenal receiver coach, but when you've got guys like Kupp and Woods, you add Deshaun Jackson to the mix. You talk about 3 veteran guys that have been producing at a high level for him to be able to learn from. That's a big deal for him.
Sean, I think my top takeaway from this weekend is that you and Les need a new offensive line coach, Kevin Carberry, must see that position group just a little bit differently than everyone outside the facility. Can you kind of assure the audience that the offensive line and Kevin are going to be okay?
Yeah, I feel really good. I mean, when you look at the 11 guys that we had on the offensive line going into this weekend, 10 of the 11 have played in games that really matter in the regular season, big-time atmospheres, environments. You get Chandler Brewer, who's a young developmental player back from an opt-out from last year. Tremaine Ankrum going into his second year. And then there's really depth across the board. You know, we've got guys that have played tackle. When you look at Whitworth and Havenstein, Joe Noteboom has the ability to play at a high level. I think Ankrum can do that. When you look at the guard spots, you've got David Edwards, you've got Corbett, you've got a Bobby Evans who's played really good ball. Chandler Brewer is a guy that I am very excited about. And then when you look at the interior, Jamil Demby is a guy that started games going back to the 19 season and played at a really high level. And then you've got guys at the center position and Brian Allen, Coleman Shelton, who are legitimate NFL caliber guys. And really some of those interior players have the ability to flex inside and play center. So we're going to toy with some different things, but, we'll add some good college free agents. But when you look at it, if you've got 11 guys that you feel really good about, that's a good thing. All of them are productive players that we think are getting better. Even Big Whit is getting better at the age of 86. I'm kidding.
I think you're short of him.
It is unbelievable this guy's playing as well as he is, though. It's amazing.
Well, Sean, it's exciting because you've added a handful of wideouts, a running back, and a tight end to the mix. How big is the playbook looking these days for Matthew Stafford?
We will see. You know, I think we'll definitely have some options at our disposal, some different personnel groupings, different ways that we can activate 5 eligibles at a time, and it's going to be a lot of fun. You know, I think we just can't wait as coaches to be able to get with these guys, get to work, and figure out what's going to be the best way to establish our identity offensively so that we can be a really competitive team.
You know, Coach, the longer you stay in it, you know this, I guess the more numb you become to player movement. Like when you get a quarterback like Matt Stafford, not surprised. These things happen in the National Football League. How about you, 5 years in? You see players come and go. You're adding new ones all the time. I mean, do you get to a point where you become numb to player movement?
I don't think you ever want to do that, D'Marco, but I do think you can't be naive to the fact that, this league is ever changing, and you got to have that flexibility, that agility. Always want to look for ways to create the most competitive situations and give yourself a chance to legitimately go compete for world championships. We've had decent amount of success, but, we haven't finished the deal like you did. And, we're trying to do what we can every single day to just be able to take those incremental steps, really put those blocks in place to build it the right way, establish the right foundation. And, we're really starting week 3 of the offseason program next week. I think our players and coaches have done an outstanding job through 2 weeks. We add 9 players in addition to the college free agents. And make no mistake about it, we expect to be a damn good football team, but you got to earn it every single day.
How much did having those 3 7th-rounders, 2 of which you acquired through trade, give you a head start into that college free agent process?
Yeah, it's a big deal, JB, because when you really look at it, sometimes when you just see how these guys that are really high priority college free agents, you're better off saying maybe you move back, add a couple picks late in the 7th, and really pull off some of those guys that would be at the upper echelon of your college free agent priority list. And we were able to do that. We were able to add really, players that we had a lot of like for. And again, I continue to come away impressed with the way that our personnel and our coaching staff collaborates and really does a good job of identifying players that we all like, we feel good about, and we have a vision for. I think that's the most important thing. There's a vision for how these players fit, what they do with that based on how they compete. They can really take it as far as they go, but I think there's an investment for everybody to try to help these guys reach their highest potential. And all 9 of those guys that we took today, or really 7 today, 2 yesterday, fit that criteria.
Sean, you feel good about the future of this team, but how good have you felt working out of the Malibu draft house this season?
I felt good. I miss my buddy Les. He was still hanging out in his garage. He looked healthy. He felt good, but it worked out really well. I thought our guys did an outstanding job. When you look at Jeff Graves, you look at Dan Demetrison, to continue to do such a good job of being able to transition from Kalu over here. There's a lot of work that puts all this stuff together, as you guys know, and certainly isn't taken for granted, but very appreciative. And, like I said, the Rams got better, and this was a good week. It's a good view. Cliff Kingsbury doesn't have shit on us.
Thank you. I love it. Love the shots. About the guys you picked. I like Bobby Brown. I like the way he plays. Real quick, you got to have confidence to wear number 5 and be a nose tackle. But I think I'm going to fall in love with a guy like Ernest Jones. I think that just jumps off the screen when you watch him play, especially in college. I think that will translate to be a teeth rattler at this level. I
think so. Ernest is a great communicator. You can really see the people that have been around him love this guy. He's got great instincts. You just look at how quick he's able to recognize things, smart pursuit angles, really can play competitive in both defending the run, defending the pass. And then I've always been an R&B fan, so I'm excited about adding Bobby Brown. That's a good thing for us. We weren't going to be cruel to him wearing single digits, so we're very excited about adding Bobby Brown to the mix from Texas A&M. I wonder if he has any music swag and does listen to Bobby Brown. He's got a lot of good hits. My mom was always listening to Bobby Brown growing up, so I'm a big fan.
It's his prerogative. It's his
there
prerogative.
I love it. So we're on the same level.
What's to do?
Sean, last one for me. I know it's this weekend is about the 21 class, but my mind started gravitating to last year's group, kind of 12 months getting to know them and how pivotal they could be to your success this fall. Cam, we know. Van, we know. But Lewis still seems to have a big role ahead of him. Burgess, Hopkins, Fuller, you name it, maybe even Tremaine Ankrum. How much are you expecting the year 1 to year 2 leap impact the success of the Rams this season?
Yeah, I think you mentioned it perfectly, JB. These are guys, when you look at the last 2 years, because a lot of these guys weren't necessarily forced into action. You see the roles that Cam and Jordan Fuller played, but I thought Terrell Burgess was a guy that was just hitting his stride at the right time. There's flashes from Terrell Lewis. Tremaine Ankrum is a guy that we feel like really, the biggest decision we have is figuring out where is he going to be best at, because I think he can legitimately play all 5 spots across the line. Really like his demeanor and disposition. Van Jefferson, what a huge fan I am of him and what a complete player I think he has the capabilities and the capacity to become. So that draft class, in addition to these guys, you're looking at 2 years worth of guys that we're really excited, and I think that we're going to really reap the benefits not only this year but for years to come with that foundation of players that we've been able to acquire through the draft the last couple seasons.
Well, we appreciate you joining us you wrapped up the draft. Congratulations, Sean. I hope you feel good, and we're excited to see you at training camp.
All right, that's good. I just hope that Mo finally gets the audio figured out, man. You're looking great. It's good to see you, Mo. All right, hey, you're looking clean as always, my man.
Thanks, Sean. We have Maurice Jones-Drew joining us momentarily. We've got D'Marco Farr, JB Long, Sarina Morales. We've wrapped up the 2021 NFL Draft. Maurice is shaving in the background. You can't see this, but we've got a glimpse of that. Either way, the Rams entered day 3 with 5 picks. The first one at pick 117 in the 4th round, which they acquired from the Niners. They selected, as we just mentioned, Bobby Brown, defensive tackle out of Texas A&M. D'Marco, you've mentioned him briefly, but how do you feel about a guy like this being added to the D-line? He's 6'5", 305 pounds, ran a 5.0 440, has a 30-inch vertical. I would say both of these things are pretty good for a big man.
And there's more there. I mean, I think he's raw. I mean, he's good. You watch him play at Texas A&M. He's got movement. He flashes. He can get up the field. But there's going to be more there when you teach him how to play consistently. I remember a guy named Michael Brockers coming in the same way. That was raw. They used that first year as a red shirt and said he would get better. His senior year was going to be in the NFL. I kind of see the same thing out of Bobby Brown. So he's got a great coach in Eric Henderson. He's going to be working with Aaron Donald. And I love what he said about Aaron Donald. Whatever Aaron asks him to do, he will do. That's the right attitude. So he's going to get some good dog work at that D-line. So I think he's a guy that can give you some spot duty this season coming up. And 2 years from now, it'll be like Sebastian Joseph Day all over again. He'll be a guy that just all of a sudden takes off and is a player before you know it.
D'Marco, I think we talked last night about how the first priority in Sean McVay's mind this offseason was getting more explosive on offense. And through a variety of moves, including Tutu Atwell with their first selection of this draft, they kind of checked that box. Then it seems they turned it over to new defensive coordinator Raheem Morris and let him stack his cupboard a bit. What do you read, if anything, into the Rams going middle linebacker, interior defensive line with picks 2 and 3?
Raheem Morris can talk to Sean McVay and get some things that he needs. No, but I mean, look, when you look at it, I mean, you've had some turnover on defense, and you've got a new coordinator coming in. You've got to create competition. Now, the defense was great last season. It kept you in games. It was the reason you were in the postseason for the most part. So you're going to have to restock that. But the offense has a chance to get better with Matt Stafford, with Tutu Atwell. There's going to be more speed. But to me, you had to restock that defense. I guess a little bit less expensive than what you were paying before. So get the same production for a lower cost with newer players, and I think you got that in this year's draft.
JB, do you mind if I bring in our 4th member of this crew, Maurice Jones-Drew? Maurice, you were brushing your beard, looking clean for air, so thanks for that. Thanks for making yourself look better for us.
Well, what happens is, like, I'm at the wolf stage right now, so when I cut it down, I'll look like Sean. That's the thing. Like, you got to brush it, so then when I trim it down, it looks just like Sean's, and I'm crisp and ready to go. But I apologize for you guys seeing me, like, manicure myself on air. And thank you, D'Marco, for texting me, because JB and Sarina just were going to let me keep brushing while you guys were laughing. I was wondering why everyone was laughing. I was like, what's going on? But neither here nor there. I just, I was trying to make sure my beard is down and everything, so when I get it cut, I'm good to go.
I got a couple of photos of that, so don't worry. We'll save those for another day.
It's all good. It's all good.
Maurice, good to have you, though. Either way, you look great. You're looking fresh. Wanted to get your thoughts. It was an interesting draft. We have a handful of wide receivers, a tight end, a running back. Just overall thoughts on this improvement of the offense.
Yeah, I was a little concerned because when it came across the board, it said wide receiver. So I text JB like, "What's going on? We just drafted another wide receiver," and he calmed my nerves a little bit, saying like, "No, he's going to be play that Gerald Everett tight end role," which I think is very important for this roster for this team. You want to have mismatches all over the field, and watching that guy's tape, Jacob Harris, he is going to be a mismatch in this offense. I mean, again, JB, it just brings me back to that time we called the Cowboys game. You lined Higbee out wide, and he ran an option route on the nickel, caught the ball, and was able to get you 15 yards. So I think you're going to see a lot of that going on. I think adding a ton of speed to this roster is something that we haven't seen in the last couple of years. Brandon Cooks was the kind of speed guy, had some injuries, and they had to go away from it. So Sean wanted to make sure he has speed. You add Deshaun Jackson in free agency, then you add Deshaun Jackson 2.0 in the draft in your first pick with the kid out of Louisville. I don't want to mess his name up, but it's Tutu Atwell. Yeah, I just want to make sure I didn't mess his name up. But he can fly. And so you've added explosiveness, guys that can do I think Tutu Atwell is a little bit of Tavon Austin and Deshaun Jackson. He could do the fly sweep motion, get the ball to him in space and make things happen. And then he could take the top off as well. And then just listening a little bit to what Sean was saying, how he still loves all these other guys, but there were some things that they were missing offensively that he wanted to add. I love it. And then, a side note here is Jake Funk. I actually got a chance to coach him as well this offseason when I was down in Florida, and he's a special teams demon, right? Not only can he play running back and catch the ball out of the back, but on special teams, he's going to be rivaling that Nick Scott era of being down there making tackles and different things like that. And that's what you're going to need in order to win some of these close games, because throughout the whole draft, the NFC got better. I mean, as a whole, that conference got better throughout the draft and free agency. So it's going to be a tough road ahead for the Rams.
Well, I key in on the thing that Sean said about having a vision for the players they select, right? And that vision is the game day roster, right? It's not just stacking players in the practice squad, depth behind depth. It's who's going to contribute and make our 21 team better. And I think Funk falls in that category on teams. From what I hear, Jacob Harris is ecstatic about the opportunity to play special teams, was a core special teamers despite being relatively new to the game, only 5 years from his soccer career. And I think Robert Rochelle, the corner they took out of Central Arkansas, has a ton of that potential as well. It's like a hyper athletic prospect who gives you high value at an expensive position, maybe gives you the upside to find your corner of the future opposite Jalen Ramsey. But in the meantime, not only depth, but he is dressed and ready to go on game day because of what he can contribute to that third phase, which, as we know, was an Achilles heel for the Rams last year.
Special teams, I always tell people this, special teams rarely wins you games, but it will cost you games. And that's one thing that we saw over the last couple of years, is that special teams, let alone last year, special teams kind of went down a little bit and Rams were winning in spite of it. And JB, you were calling for it, like, what's going on? What's going on? It was a kicker situation. Then there was a couple returner issues. And then you obviously had the punt return and a couple of kickoffs that were, getting past the 25-yard line. So you want to make sure you add those core special teams guys that can come in and make plays. To also talk about the linebacker, and I want to say it was the bottom of the third, at the end of the third round, the Rams took. My goodness, watching his tape, like, he hits with the intent of old school hurting. Like, he's trying to knock you and the ball out of the stadium. And that's what you want. You want guys to bring that type of tenacity. Not only can he do that, he could cover. You saw how athletic he was. He could run. He'll be a core special teams guy as well, if not competing for a starting spot on that defense. So, again, I thought the Rams, after you calmed my nerves down with the big wide receiver, JB, thank you very much. After that, I was like, okay, now I get it. I can see the vision. And, again, adding depth to the defensive line, always, you're going to win in those trenches. All those type of things are going to be huge down the road here for the Rams.
D'Marco, let me ask on Ernest Jones, because even though he didn't play the same position, there is a role to fill replacing John Johnson, and that is the defensive signal caller, right? We know that from the safety level, JJ wore the green dot. It seems to me that competition for the middle linebacker, and it'll involve Jones, their third-round selection, is also going to have some leadership responsibility attached to it.
Old school, man, but it kind of grew on me having your safeties kind of be the signal caller. Let those linebackers face the line of scrimmage and not change. Just like defensive linemen, don't cloud their mind with a bunch of information. Just get the call and go play. So, especially if they're young. But I was going to say about Ernest Jones, and this will sound weird when you first hear it, but just take the positives from Rolando McClain. Leave the negatives. That's the type of player. Like he says, he plays for keeps. He plays old school ball. I hate to say it, but he's going to lay the wood. He's trying to knock you out. I don't mind that as a linebacker. So as long as you can cover, get lined up, and don't make the mental mistakes, then so be it. But, yeah, I mean, I do not mind safeties calling the defense as much as I did the first time I heard it. Actually, I think it's a benefit now. It keeps the front seven facing the offense at all times, and it keeps those guys on the same page. So that doesn't bother me anymore.
D'Marco, let's touch on the front seven. You look at the depth of the D-line, but you lost Morgan Fox, you lost Michael Brockers. Now, Eric Henderson has told me he loves some of the younger guys on the D-line. There was some depth there last season, but he's going to have to fill some significant playmakers. Or, you know, how do you kind of see some of these additions being added, replacing Michael Brockers, replacing a Morgan Fox?
Well, I'll ask you. I mean, what type of Ashawn Robinson are we going to get? Are we going to get the guy that was out of Detroit or the guy that was, trying to find his sea legs here? But if he turns out to be that sort of Ashawn with Sebastian Joseph Day, he takes another step. You compare that with Aaron Donald. I think front line-wise, you're going to be great. You're going to be pretty darn good. Now, Greg Gaines has to take another step. He has to threaten for more playing time. But there are spots available. There's going to be competition from guys that were here, but everyone that has been drafted or that is brought in 2021 will have a chance to compete for those depth spots, those backup spots. Now, outside of Leonard Floyd, I mean, it's a pick 'em. I would love to say Obo Okoronkwo, but I need to see the scheme first, and he needs to stay healthy. There will be competition for those jobs. And when you think about safety, as long as Taylor Rapp comes back and is Taylor Rapp and Jordan Fuller stays healthy, I think you'll be pretty good because they got the reps. So it's not going to be too big or too new for them. So it's not an area of strength, but to me, it's not a black hole in the back end. I think there are guys that have experience that can actually take a step, and you'll be pretty good. Pretty much where you were last season.
Mo, when we're calling games on Sunday, one of your favorite expressions is speed at 3. And I wonder if we can bring this back to Tutu Atwell, the top selection in this draft for the Rams, and what that means in the context of Sean McVay's offense and who that might benefit. And from a fantasy football perspective, here's what I'm driving at. Cooper Kupp could be in line for a career season if you're picking up what I'm putting down.
Well, I was going to say that when you talk about speed at 3, it threatens the defense up the middle, right? So you're going to threaten linebackers, you're going to threaten safeties, you're going to force everyone to drop deep, and it's going to open up the middle of the field. It's going to open up the shallow parts where we see Cooper Kupp run those option routes, where we see Robert Woods run those drive over routes, or Tyler Higbee coming across the field. So you want, like I said, I understand why Sean McVay went where he went with his first pick, because you want to put pressure on the DBs as much as possible. You want to attack defense as much as possible vertically. Last year, they couldn't do it. They were doing it all horizontal. Guys were running side to side, and guys were sitting on your routes. Now, with the speed demon here, and he's really insurance, to be honest with you, JB, for Deshaun Jackson. He's insurance. You got to make sure that, because I think Deshaun will come out and he'll be the starter at first. He'll show his burst. But throughout the years, he's gotten older and he gets, those soft tissue injuries. And so you'll have a replacement for that when the time comes. But both of those guys, they can take it the distance. They can take it the house. You saw some of his plays at Louisville where he's lined up at the 3 spot or the third receiver inside the close to the line of scrimmage, and he's just beating safeties across the field. And so that type of pressure forces guys or teams like the Seattle Seahawks to have to play cover 2 and not cover 4 and not cover 3, right? They have to play some type of man-to-man, and now they identify where they are, and now Matthew Stafford can kind of diagnose where he wants to go with the ball a little bit faster. So, those players, those fast players, man, it's like I always tell people, you can't coach speed. That's one thing you can't coach. You can coach almost everything else except for looks and speed. And so I tell you what, man, listen, you got some speed, you will terrorize defenses.
Well, here's the other part of that equation, though, and I want to ask Mark if he's buying what Sean McVay and Les Snead and the Rams are selling in terms of their offensive line, which is that you can protect, you can hold up long enough to get vertical and to threaten defenses over the top. I think from the fan base's standpoint, that's very much a question coming out of this draft. But look, I get it. I mean, you may not have drafted Austin Corbett, but he was a guy at the top of the second round that you traded for and that you brought into your building over the last couple of years. So I can see how it might come to fruition with a new offensive line coach this year.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think much is going to change up front in terms of technique or how they go about blocking the inside-outside zone or your play-action pass. I still think Sean McVay is going to keep these defenses honest with his play calling. And when you talk about, like you said, speed at 3, Tutu Atwell, and Cooper Kupp, think about what's in your division. This is basically Buda Baker, Jamal Adams insurance. How can you blitz when you've got threats in the slot? How can you not tell what you're doing when you have threats in the slot? So that's what this division has come to, and that's what this league is going to. So it makes sense. But as long as you can expose your defense and get them to tell and say they're either going to rush 3, 4, or 5, I think your offensive line, as long as they have enough time to pick it up, diagnose, you can get hat on a hat and then get the ball out. So, and then you think about who is delivering the football. Matt Stafford's got a pretty quick release, and he's used to being under pressure. So I think with this offensive line, with the manpower you have, I think you can get away with hiding guys with your play calling. And when you have to come and be tough and try to get an extra yard or protect on a 7-step drop, I still think you have the skill at left tackle to do that versus just about anybody in your conference.
You guys keep touching on speed, but I'd like to get to the other side of the ball. Let's go to the 130th pick overall in the 4th round. The Rams selected Robert Rochelle, the corner back out of Central Arkansas. They say he's speedy, he's overall great athlete. But, he's going to be added to that cornerbacks room, which has Darius Williams, who slowly grew into his position, and certainly, playing opposite of Jalen Ramsey. How do you feel like he will be added to the mix?
Well, I think he's gonna add competition at the end of the day. Like, you need competition for David Long Jr. You need competition for some of the younger guys that are there. And when you bring in a draft pick like this, a guy that has the speed and the athleticism and can do different things, and as we're watching these highlights here, he'll help. Again, he'll bring competition to that group. He'll help on special teams, and then hopefully you can coach him into being the player that you're looking for, right? You can coach him into being that nickel guy or that number 2 corner opposite Jalen Ramsey if Darius Williams decides to leave or gets a contract. So for me, it's about you have to add depth and competition, but also those players have to be able to contribute right away. And so who knows? Maybe he's like Jordan Fuller and he comes in right away and is a player, right? And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, we got us a guy. He could go. And so you just never know, but I always love adding competition to rooms, even though rooms are pretty good. And especially when you have a young room, you want to have competition because competition breeds greatness. It forces guys to get uncomfortable, and either they're going to, whether we like to call it, D'Marco, you remember this, get down or lay down, right? Either going to get with the program and show up, or you're going to bow down to them. And so that type of competition normally breeds greatness. A lot of guys on the Rams are very tough competitors. We like to call those true competitors, guys that are going to go out there and play tough. And so I just think, again, anytime you add speed, athleticism to a room, nothing really bad happens in that situation. It just continues to breed more confidence to that group that's going to have to go out there and lock up.
Look what you're trying to combat in the NFC West. Look at the receiver depth charts of the Arizona Cardinals, the Seattle Seahawks, and the San Francisco 49ers. And I think to have Jalen on one side and the upside to potentially have another 6-foot-plus corner, which is freakish athleticism. I mean, he was on Bruce Feldman's college football freaks list. That's a pretty exclusive group. Now, I understand he's a relatively raw talent from what I've read, but if the technique can match the athleticism, I mean, you might be uniquely equipped to go up against some of these arsenals and be the best in the West.
Well, I know this might be Jalen's job, but think about it. You're going from Debo to DK to Hopkins, right? I mean, that's 3 different animals with 3 different type skill sets. I mean, it's a monster. So
but Lockett and AJ behind them, it doesn't get much easier.
Yeah.
You don't get a day off in the secondary. So, and I love guys that are athletic. I really do. I mean, I'd rather have a fast guy or an explosive guy versus the opposite. But this is a whole different level. So I can't wait to see him going out there and compete. But I'll say, look at how Nick Scott turned out. Special teams. We brought him in as a safety a little bit, and then towards the middle of the year and the end, I mean, he was one of your sub guys, and he played pretty good safety. But it may take a minute to get your feet wet at that position. But with that athleticism, I would bet that plays on game day. At some point, you'll see him on the field playing special teams.
Absolutely. I hate to be that guy, but they're switching to a 17-game schedule this year. And the Rams are planning on playing 18 and 19 and 20 after that, too. So just because your 2 deep is set at the top doesn't mean that some of these rookies might not play key roles like Nick Scott before the season is out.
No doubt. Yeah. I mean, look, I'd like to see more of him at safety, and I bet you will. But the thing I like more about Nick Scott, and I hope I'll like about this pick, is his willingness to come up and hit. You know what I mean? His ferocity to the football. That's the stuff that can't be taught. That's the stuff that just jumps out. And it's funny how a guy that runs, let's say he's timed at a 4.5. He keeps beating the guy that's timed at a 4.3 to the football. Now, is he faster? No. He just wants it more and he won't turn it down. So as long as you get those athletes that have the willingness, those are the special type players you can turn into a pretty good defensive player.
Yeah, a lot of the scouting reports say Rochelle can grow if he's coached up right. Like you guys mentioned, the raw talent. But you've got, a secondary coach like Evero, and what he's done with the secondary overall. I know a lot of the guys respect him. Do we feel pretty good about now the depth? I mean, you guys talk about competition, so are we satisfied with adding one cornerback to the secondary?
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
Listen, I've been very vocal about adding more to both the offensive line and the secondary this year for the Rams. One corner, it may be enough. I don't know. I mean, again, we're just analyzing what we see and how we feel. We're not the coaches in there. But at the end of the day, like, everyone gets an opportunity, and that's what I love. I love that about the Rams. Like, they will play whoever. If you're good enough to go out there and make plays for them, they will play. I remember, was it Kevin Peterson who started balling all of a sudden a couple years ago, and they threw him out there. Darius Williams was a guy that we talked about in preseason a couple times, and he got the opportunity to go out there. So they'll play whoever. And so for me, I think that's always good because you just never know. There may be an undrafted guy that they bring in that ends up being a baller, right? That ends up being a guy that makes plays because he has been coached up and he understands the technique. He understands the scheme and what they're trying to do and what they're giving up. And then he's able to make plays. And so to me, it's all about just acquiring as much talent as possible, right? And I love let me say this. I love the Rams trading away first-round picks for a top-tier talent. I love that because you know what you're getting. I just wish that more teams kind of saw that because there's a lot of guys out there that aren't getting utilized the right way and they can go to a situation and make plays, i.e. Jalen Ramsey in that star role or i.e. Matthew Stafford not really getting those opportunities in Detroit. Now he's here. So the Rams have a very special thing, but the beautiful thing about it is they allow players to play. And that is the one thing that I've always loved about Sean McVay. He doesn't care what round you're drafted in. He doesn't care how highly talented you are or whoever's talking about you. If you can make plays, guess what? They will find a way to put you on the field. That's a beautiful thing here in Los Angeles.
Quantum tight end, Gerald Everett is off to division rival Seattle, and now I think two prominent names have a chance to replace him, or at least his downs and his targets. Bryson Hopkins from last year's class, basically coming off a redshirt year, and now Jacob Harris, a receiver at Central Florida. But gentlemen, he's the type of player, the profile that I think gives you a chance to win, 50-50 contested balls above defenders that we haven't seen a lot of, despite the success of this Rams offense under Sean McVay.
Oh, it would be nice to have that sort of matchup. Somebody to go opposite of Tyler Higbee, who I think is one of the if there's an elite group of tight ends, I think he's either on the mix or just below it. So, and in certain games, he can take over. And in the red zone, I think I want to see more. But, yeah, I mean, when you have to go 12, 2 tight ends, or 13 personnel with 3 tight ends versus whatever team you're playing, or against Seattle in Seattle, the tight end is paramount. You must have a guy that can block and catch passes to pick up first downs or to make you pay in the red zone. The guy that I'm more intrigued about is Bryson Hopkins. What does he actually bring to this football team? Is he going to be more of a pass catcher? Is he going to be more of a inline tight end, put his hand down and let Tyler Higbee kind of slide to that H position where he gets to move around? Who's going to slide back and play fullback when need be? Gerald Everett kind of assumed that role. It wasn't perfect for him, but he did it. So which one of those guys is going to assume that role and kind of embody that identity in the offense? But we'll see. But I know with the last name Hopkins, your dad was a blocker, then you have to have some of that in your blood. So maybe it'll be him come September.
Yeah, Johnny Mundt is going to be the blocker.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of been that role's been taken. I think you're exactly right though. Right, this was kind of a message to Hopkins actually When we draft you in the 4th round, we come back and draft another guy very similar to you, very similar to Tyler Higbee, in the next year's draft. That's telling you, like, hey, you need to start getting yourself together here, because we can't wait around on you. We're going somewhere. Either you're coming with, or we're going to leave you behind. And I think, again, the tight end, and I've said this multiple times, the safety position has become such a valuable position because of the way Tyler Higbee plays tight end, the way he can move, line out wide and run routes and play receiver and those type of things, which he did in college, right? The same thing with Harris here. He's a receiver, but he'll have an 80s number on, and he'll be positioned. He'll be tight end as position, but your safeties have to be able to drop down and cover. Can my man in Seattle slips Jamal Adams? Can Jamal Adams cover him in the slot? Right, that's a big slot receiver. Can Buda Baker cover him in the slot? Right? Can Fred Warner step out and cover? Like, you're going to start putting different pressure on guys that the NFC West hasn't seen, and so I think it's going to be important. Very similar to the way that the Niners use George Kittle when he's lined up out wide, where they have him run dig routes and different things. I think you'll see Sean McVay really dive into that a little bit more in that 12 personnel and possibly 13 personnel sets.
Maurice,
I like this.
A scuffed pair of Air Jordans, right? You go out and buy a new pair.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
And the first pair you get, they become your gardening shoes. You know that.
Oh, man. Ruthless. I like Jacob Harris as an overall athlete. Actually started his career as a walk-on Western Kentucky. He was originally recruited to play Division I soccer. So be interesting either way in that tight end room, even though you guys are just both like, let's move on to Jordans and make comparisons like that. For those of you just joining us, you are watching the Rams post-draft show presented by Rocket Mortgage. JB and I are coming to you live from the Rocket Mortgage Draft House here in Malibu, California. And now we welcome both of you, Maurice Jones-Drew and D'Marco Farr. Want to move on to a couple other picks. Maurice, let's start with you, because we talked about this position as a focus for the Rams to snag as far as linebackers and adding to that space. How do you feel about adding, Ernest Brown from Northwestern?
Listen, you just wanted depth. And so when I got a chance to it was a little tough because I was working while the draft was going on, but I was getting the opportunity to talk to a lot of people. Players that come out of Northwestern, they're going to be smart. They're going to be tough. They're going to be physical. So you're going to get that. I think the other deal is you just want to continue. Again, the Rams struggled at inside linebacker a little bit. When you have to bring John Johnson III down there to play on sub package and different things, I think that's why they're like, look, we need to go get a little bit more athletic, smart guys that can come out here and run our defense and just get back to what we did best when we were playing well. What Corey Littleton did best when he was here. And so I haven't really got much chance to watch this linebacker we're talking about. But I haven't got a chance to watch him. But I've watched Northwestern, and I've seen them play defense, and I see how they fly to the ball they hit. So when I get a chance to watch them a little bit more, I'll be able to break them down.
What tough guy do you know from Northwestern? What tough guy do you know from Northwestern, Maurice?
Have you seen their coach? Northwestern got some tough dudes, man. Like, it's not the same Northwestern that it used to be when we played. I promise you that much. They're smart for sure, but they're bringing toughness. Justin Jackson, who was with the Chargers, tough running back that's played well.
Okay.
I got it. You're asking me on the spot, but I'll get it going. But I believe that that's what they breathe there. I mean, the tackle that just went to the Chargers, Rashawn Slater, that's a tough dude.
No, above the neck, they can definitely process information. I thought project. This is a project. This is a guy that you might want to redshirt. Give him some work, let him get stronger in the weight room, and then 2022, late 2021, he bursts onto the scene. But I thought project with this pick.
Well, let me ask you real quick. I have to with this longer season, do you think there'll be more projects, or you think this guy he's going to eventually have to play because you're adding another game to the schedule like that? That could be 3 or 4 bodies down by that time, right? I
just do know with this group, the way they work and how they're being trained, and I can't say this enough about Eric Henderson and about Aaron Donald being the pacemaker or the pace setter. You have no choice but to get better as a defensive lineman with this group. So with the reps he's going to get, the high-level reps, eventually, like you said, he's going to work himself into a pretty good player. Just get stronger, get more weight room strong, and that will come.
D'Marco, how about the importance of the position flex within the defensive line? Because if Aaron Donald is going to be lining up over every offensive lineman and in every gap, the guys around him have to be malleable enough to be effective around 99, don't they?
Absolutely. I would say this, as a defensive lineman, regardless if they told me or not, I'm going to learn 2 positions. I'm going to learn mine and Aaron's, because at any point during the game, he may just come over and slide me over because I want that guy. You know what I mean? And in Raheem Morris's defense, he even said it with guys like Aaron Donald. You don't want to put them any place. You don't want to try to design too much stuff. You just want them to play their football game. So Aaron has the autonomy to move along the offensive line and pick the guy he wants to. So learn 2 positions where you need to be and what your responsibilities are. And then if Aaron decides to take that spot, know the other spot at the same time. So very important that everybody's on the same page with that defense with a guy like Aaron.
Yeah, Ernest Brown the fourth, as they continue to go Roman numerals, and they continue to prefer Ernest's 6'5", 270 defensive end. So he's got the opportunity to play maybe some of those even fronts, depending on what Raheem Morris and company choose to do. All right, let's zip through the 7th round. Jake Funk, we talked about a little bit, running back from Maryland, who seems to be an option to be a core special teamer. Ben Skoranek, who started at Northwestern, finished at Notre Dame. Wonder if he'll end up with the receiver or tight end group. And then lastly, outside linebacker from Concordia St. Paul, Chris Garrett. So much of our attention has been about the offensive line, perceived need, and the lack of addressing it. How about on the edge? Because, there's some losses in that group, edge pass rush, and the only outside linebacker they end up taking is Chris Garrett from a D2 school, who, by the way, I think set the D2 record for forced fumbles in his career.
For me, again, I think this is more of a special teams project. I think the Rams were comfortable with what they had at outside linebacker opposite of Leonard Floyd. They let Samson Ebukam go. They didn't address, so you have to feel comfortable with the guys you had in rotation, right? I feel like Obo Okoronkwo started getting there. He hurt, what was it, his elbow that he hurt? Didn't he hurt his elbow last year? Right, so that kind of threw him out. And then Justin Hollins came in and made some plays. I mean, he did what we asked him to do. Like, he rushed the passer decently, but he set an edge, vertical edge that didn't allow guys outside. And that's what you wanted in the running game. If you go back to that Niners game in SoFi Stadium, that's how the Niners beat them. They were bouncing outside away from Leonard Floyd. So you have to make sure that you set that edge and then you allow yourself to get to 3rd down. I think when you wait to draft or you don't get a guy in free agency with that, you're saying like we're comfortable with what we have now and we'll kind of work on developing other guys in our roster.
D'Marco, I just hope it's the best indicator yet that they're feeling good about the knee of Terrell Lewis, because they've already invested in that position. It was a year ago.
Look, when healthy, I mean, you saw the long arm. When he gets that right hand out and he extended, his right hand and his right foot are about 7 feet apart. So as a tackle, I don't know how you block that, but you want to see more. Now, here's the thing I would say about edge guys, especially last season. You don't have to be dynamic. I would rather you be dynamic and be a pass rush threat in every down, but not every team has that. But just don't be the guy that gives up the edge. Just don't make the mistake and allows the team to bounce outside, or you're just not getting pressure, not rushing to the ball. But if Lewis can remain healthy, if that knee is 100%, then I love the way this defense looks. I love the bookends, tall, big outside guys that can put pressure on the quarterback and affect sight lines. And then you have Aaron Donald rushing up the middle. So I love the way it looks. But as long as you can stay healthy and be consistent and stay on the field and keep getting your reps, yeah, I think this group has a chance to really ascend.
9 picks later, we're done with the 2021 draft, and we're excited. I'll see you guys at training camp. That's a wrap here for our post-draft show presented by Rocket Mortgage. We hope you all enjoyed the coverage the last few nights, and we cannot wait to see you and our new rookies at SoFi Stadium this season. Fans are going to be back in the stadium. For some reason, you still don't have your season tickets. Go to therams.com/2021. Thank you to my partner at the Draft House the last 3 nights, JB Long. Thank you. It's been a blast. Maurice Jones-Drew. D'Marco Farr, keep your protection back there. I see you, D. Farr. Just repping yourself all day. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night, and go Rams.